Good evening. I'm Mark McIntyre, Chair of the Southampton ARB. Joining me this evening are John Gregory and Jane Clare. Board members Jeff Broadleib and Susan Stevenson are not with us tonight, but the rules require that we have 3 people to have quorum. Therefore, we have quorum. So motion to open the September 25th meeting of the Southampton Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Going down, we have a bunch of business here. We do not have minutes to approve, so I'm going to hold those until next week. We have a written decision for 39 Lewis 1 and 2 LLC, and I'm going to ask that we hold that until next meeting when full board is present. And we have a slew of adjournment requests, which I'm going to go out of order and get those out of the way before we go to the pre-submission, if you don't mind. So we have I'm going to motion that we accept the adjournment request for 300 North Main Street to October 23rd, 242 South Main Street LLC to October 23rd, 50 Post Crossing to October 23rd, 98 Pheasant Close, Ronald and Sandy Diamond to October 23rd, and John Sedaris and Richard Hansen at 53 Halsey Street to October 23rd. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. In case anyone's here for them, there are 2 other applications on the agenda that we're not going to hear tonight. One is for 52 South Roscoe Street, because the file is incomplete, and the second is for 50 Hildreth Street, as those files are incomplete. So motion by the chair to adjourn 52 South Roscoe and 50 Hildreth Street to September 23rd.
Before we adjourn those, can we take jurisdiction?
Okay.
At least for, I'm sorry.
We have jurisdiction on 50 Hildreth because we opened it last meeting.
52 Roscoe, we don't, but we do have the affidavits.
Okay, so I just need to call it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm calling 52 South Roscoe Street.
Okay, we have the affidavits and they're in order, so now
Great.
you can make your motion.
Okay,
to
so
adjourn.
motion by chair to adjourn 52 South Roscoe Street to October 23rd. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is
Okay,
380.
I'm sorry, and can you do 50 Hildreth over again?
Oh, okay, so motion by the chair to accept, adjourn 50 Hildreth Street to October 22nd. Is there a 23rd? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are we good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, keep you in order. Keep me honest. Okay, next up we have a pre-submission conference for 383 First Neck Lane LLC. We got a big file. And if you'll do me a favor and just introduce yourself.
Frank Greenwald, architect, Sag Harbor, New York. I am the architect and the applicant for this project at 383 First Neck Lane. And thank you again, everybody, for doing this. This is, has been really helpful, this pre-submission. So when we were here last, there were several worthwhile objections. Let's just pull these drawings out. So, yeah, last time we were here, there were several objections or recommendations to what we had presented, most of which I think revolved around what we were proposing to do at the front of the house. To just sort of back up a little bit, the existing house, the house that exists there now was moved there in 1916. We have records of that. We don't have any of the records after that until 1971, when the house was moved. According to the Sanborn map, there were these 2 side additions were here. There was the main body of the house. The 2 side additions on the north and south were here. The front porch was not on the map, but when it shows up again in 1971, it does show the front porch on there. So we don't really know if that front porch was part of it or not. We do know that there was the additions on the 2 sides, and there was a small sort of we're sort of assuming is a service or staff addition in the rear of the building. The objections last time were that we were proposing to remove the two side additions and the front porch and rebuild the side additions in what we thought was a more correct manner, but giving no regard to the history of it. Anyway, what we're proposing now is to maintain the front of the building, maintain the front porch, maintain the north and south additions. The addition on the south, which is this little screened porch, we are proposing to remove the screens and install glass and make it sort of a year-round sunroom. We are still proposing to remove what's left of the back, original back addition, rear addition. It's hard to see exactly what that was versus what it is today. If you look at the Sanborn maps, you can see it was narrower, it was shorter, it's been lengthened, it's been fattened, the roof lines have changed. So we're sort of under the assumption that there's not a whole lot left there of what was originally built and moved in 1916. So we are proposing to remove that and rebuild a rear addition. The other sort of major comment last time was that the scale of it was looked too large compared to the original portion of the house in the front. So we've sort of cut it back, dropped the roof lines down, dropped the plate heights on the second floor, put some dormers in, broke the massing of it up a bit more. And that's what these drawings represent. There is, I think it was in 2005, there was this large two-story addition in the back, which we're proposing to keep and relocate slightly on the property. It's a garage with a master suite above it. We're proposing to pick it up, move it, and incorporate it sort of better into the existing, or into the proposed additions to the existing building. The other thing which is not reflected on these drawings, which I wanted to talk about, is the existing house is 161 feet from the front property line. There's a driveway that runs across the front of the property. We would really love to, because what we need to do is pick the house up and redo the foundation under the whole thing, the existing portions and obviously the new portions. While we're doing that, we'd love to slide this house forward by about 15 feet or so, 15 or 16 feet. It would enable us to get a little more separation in the backyard between the existing carriage house and the main house. It would also enable us to save a large tree that is this large tree, I think here, if I'm looking at it correctly. It's sort of a large old tree back there. And that, I mean, I sort of feel that, it's a difference of like, 15 feet over 161 feet, and we're removing the driveway with sort of a net same amount of lawn as it is now. But the house would be moved closer to the road by a sort of minimal amount. So I'm not sure what the board's thoughts are on that. And that's sort of where we are. So I know there's sort of a lot of stuff there to look at.
Well, often with these old houses there are.
Yeah.
I'll let board members start, because I do have some questions.
I think it's much improved from the initial submission, and then thank you for making the suggested
Thank you.
changes. But based on since it was moved originally, and the property is sufficient, I don't see any issue with the move 15 feet. And I appreciate the fact that the new construction has been built behind, so it protects the integrity of the original structure. Other than that, nothing there. I don't see any glaring issues from my perspective.
Okay, Jane?
I know we have some history of the house, but I would be curious, this second addition in the back, I just think is so quaint, and if you don't have a recall for when that was added on. We don't know how old that part of the house is.
No, I mean, well, there was what we
It looks
know
like a
in
connector.
1916, we know just by the Sanborn maps,
Yeah.
what roughly was there.
Yes.
Right, what's there now is that connector that has it's got the metal roof.
Yes,
I just think that has some real charm to it, and I don't know if you would really wanna get rid of that. And we haven't had our historical
I know.
Yeah, that's-
preservationist taken a look yet. I'd just be curious how old that part of the house is before we start taking that apart.
Here, I have some questions on, because one of the things, and thank you for the information, because it's really helpful, because we read through everything from the land use solutions people. Is it, I suppose it's Britton Bistrian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I have a question, because when I look at the Sanborn map, that extension of the house exists. And when I look at he supplied a survey from 1963.
Yes,
And in the 1963 survey, that extension is there.
no, it's different. Or it
It's-
appears different.
It's there in 63, and then in 71, more work was done. And you're proposing to remove everything that's there, but we don't know if if part of what is currently there is historic.
But I think if you look at the Sanborn map from 1916 or whatever it is, you can see the main body of the house. You can see looks like the porch. This looks almost exactly like the addition on
Well,
the north side.
let's go to the one from 1926.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing, it's just blown up. It's just a slightly larger version. This is the two of them one is the exact same thing.
The same thing,
One
you
is
just
just a
blown them up.
larger scale.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, they're both from the
But
1926 map.
you can sort of see,
So you can see that addition on the rear,
yeah,
but that's very different than what is on the 1963 map.
right. Because what I would,
It was pushed out on the side, it was lengthened.
it
were-
looks like an addition was done somewhere between 1926 and 1963 to the
Yes.
back of that extension.
So
But
the back and the sides.
Well, the sides are kind of unclear to me, but the back looks like there's an addition done.
Well, if you look on
So-
the south side,
Yeah,
if I can, this is sort of hard
and
to
when I walked around it,
this is actually the dining room, so there's the
Yeah.
porch, and then, where am I here? There's the porch, and
Yeah.
then the dining room is actually pushed out flush with the south end of the main house. And then there's some pieces that were added.
There's a porch and patio. So I guess the one thing that since this is a consultation, one thing that I would be asking our historic
Yeah.
consultant do is to actually go inside and take a look and determine. But before I think the work you've done at the front of the house is great. I would tell you from my perspective, I would not support moving the house forward 15 feet, because I think you're changing the streetscape on a house that's been there since somewhere between 1916 and 1926. And I think it would contemporize the streetscape by moving the house forward. So I would not support that. That's my vote. And I think the front of the house has now gone back to respect to the original intent of the house. From my perspective, I would just want to know more history before we just said, yes, take that whole center section out and rebuild it.
Mhm.
I would want to make sure that what we're taking out is not to be found to be from the 1926 house. So I think I would want more information on that.
Well, I think part of it is from the 1916 house.
Yeah, the extension,
Well, when they moved it in 1916,
yes,
part of that was there.
okay.
And, yeah,
And
and then it
because
was,
I can't tell from your demo notes, because your demo notes look like you want to demo it all the way back
yes.
to the original structure, which means you would be taking out some of that historic
Yes. But
fabric in there.
my argument or my thoughts are that there's so little of it that's original that's left there. It's just been sort of engulfed by additions. You know, the whole or half of the south side of it is pushed out.
Yeah.
It's now dining room, so that whole wall on the first floor is gone.
Until we have an evaluation, it's hard to
Yeah,
make a
yeah.
Yeah,
judgment.
what I'm saying, since it's a consultation, I think what you're hearing from the board is one thing we'd be looking
We
from
need
our
to look,
consultant to find
yeah.
out is what actually is remaining historic fabric,
Yeah.
before we just agree to have it taken out. So that's the one question. But, I think the work in the front and maintaining the integrity of the front, even enclosing the porch, still maintains the integrity of it, and that since that original Dining room, I think it's the dining room over there with the sloped roof was original and maintained. That's important. I appreciate that.
And I actually want to take a second look about the move as well.
Yeah.
Regarding the
We
placement of it.
we pick up old houses all the time
Yeah, yeah.
to repair them, but moving them around is not something
Yeah.
we normally support.
My,
'Cause we
my
support,
thought is that it's, you know, out of 160 feet, if you move it 15 feet or
but,
so.
and my thought would be it's been that
Yeah.
160 feet since 1926, so that's what it's looked like from the street. I can't speak for my other two board members, but that would be my feeling.
So how do we go about getting the historical consultant on board? Did we figure out?
What you need to do now is actually put in an application,
Okay.
because until we have an official application, we don't engage
We
the
can't
historic
do that.
consultant.
Okay.
The good news for you is, like, there's no meeting the beginning of October because we have Columbus Day, so the
Mhm.
next meeting is not until October 23rd, and then we have a big gap again into November the
Yeah, yeah.
13th. So if you can get the application in, that will signal, Alex can't be with us, he's not here tonight, so, but we'll give him the note that when the application comes in to immediately engage our historic consultant, so we can go ahead and get that out of the way for you.
Okay.
And then we'll have all the facts in from there.
All right, great.
So that would be, Jane, anything else?
Yeah, I was just curious when you're saying the tree had to come down, I'm asking, what is it that would have to make that tree come down that?
Just our proposed addition would cause the tree to come down. So,
Even if the
self-imposed.
house remains where it is?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah, just it sort of, I don't know,
I would hope maybe you could work around that, so just take a look at that.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
All right,
All right, is that
Great.
helpful?
very helpful.
Great.
Thank you
Well,
very
thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. While I'm packing up this big file with all the information, which I thank you for, I should also announce that with us tonight also is our counselor, Alice Cooley, and Jackie, our recording secretary, and Sage in the back, Certain, is running our audio video. I forgot to announce that at the beginning of the meeting, and I apologize.
It's okay, we're still here.
And keeping me honest. Okay, so that takes us down, down, down. We have so many adjournments. That takes us down to actually public hearings, non-historic. The first one is 10 North Woolley Street for construction of a two-story single-family dwelling.
Did we adjourn all the historic carryover? We did? Okay.
Yeah. Some of them adjourned last week, too.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay, anyone for 10 North Woolley Street?
He's on Zoom.
Good evening, board members. How are you?
We're well, yourself?
Doing my best to stay dry.
It's not so easy these days.
Okay. May I begin?
Yes, please start by introducing yourself.
Ryan Kestner, architect.
Okay,
We're providing this application. This is 10 North Woolley Street. And per our last meeting, we just needed a simple change on the rear exterior that I'd like to share with you, if that's okay.
please do.
So the item in question was regarding these doors. We originally had a 3-panel door and we went down to a 2-panel door. Other than that, nothing else has changed. Oh, we also went and shrunk this down as well to be in alignment with it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think it makes all the difference.
board members?
I think it's fine.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Much improved, yes, thank you.
I think it's fine. I do have a favor. Next time you give us plans, would you put cardinal points on your plans, please?
Yes, sorry,
Yeah.
my apologies.
I would appreciate it. Thank you. Any comments from the public? Okay, so I'm going to move that we motion to accept the application for 10 North Woolley Street for construction of a two-story single-family dwelling with attached garage and pergola. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm used
Thank
to
you. We'll stick around for the next one.
I'm used to Susan seconding everything, so.
Yes.
Next up is 69 Hall Street, 69 Halsey Street for construction of a single-family dwelling.
Good evening. Ryan Kester's here with me, as he told you. John Bennett, the applicant. I have, only because there was a meeting last Thursday, and I have a revised plan, a little unorthodox that I'm handing out tonight, but I want you to know that the revised plan does nothing but identify the trees that are to remain. So,
Uh,
but you can.
For the public, there was a site inspection done at the property, and we met, two of us that were able to meet, met with the landscape architect and made some suggestions, because one of the questions had come up about trees and which trees were remaining. So we had gone around and looked at the trees and documented the trees, and I'm assuming that's what we're about to see.
That's what you're about to see. So it's the existing landscaping plan has solely been amended to show the trees that will remain. Last time we were here, Ryan had presented revised architectural plans. The home has been shifted within the subject property to maintain the minimum side yard setback, excuse me. We also shifted to the west. The second floor balcony was removed and the west elevation was modified to break up the continuous roof line. And then we talked about, we had submitted a proposed landscape plan, but then there was a site visit, and although I wasn't there, I understand the board members had the opportunity to visit, or some of them did. So we're going to maintain all of the existing mature vegetation around the perimeter of the property, and that's the landscape plan that I handed up to the board, as well as gave a copy to council for some of the neighbors. So we really simply wanted to update, to clarify, and document all the existing mature vegetation that would be maintained. We couldn't get it to you by your usual time, because the meeting wasn't until Thursday. We would have had to get it to you on Tuesday. But I don't know, Ryan, did you have anything else to add? I thought we were.
No, at this junction, there were no comments on the actual architecture per the last meeting. It was strictly a site inspection by the board. So we're at that point now that we kind of need the board's input.
So, whatever the board's input it is, I know you're just receiving that. I couldn't get it to you beforehand. If your pleasure is to adjourn it to be able to look at that, that's fine. We don't really have any changes to be made to the architecture, and I certainly don't want to rush the neighbors or account.
To be honest and be fair with you, my preference would be to adjourn it, really take time to study it.
Sure, yeah.
Because I think that's fair to the applicant, and I also think we
I
have
agree.
other people, members of the public, that have not been able to see it.
I agree.
Okay. In that case, I'm going to accept the applicant's request to adjourn for 69 Halsey Street.
Will it,
Oh, wait.
what about hearing from people?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, you're right. Public comment? I'm adjourning just because no one's had a chance to look at it, but okay.
I think that we prefer to adjourn and comment at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Any public comment? Okay.
So that's for date
Is October 23rd.
Were there any comments on the architecture at all
Not the architecture, no.
No,
with
no.
respect to the house?
No, I think,
Harry.
no.
Okay,
Wait,
Not
wait.
on the architecture of the house.
excellent.
Was there a hand?
That by no means.
Click on that.
Hello, may we speak?
Start
Yes.
my video.
Introduce yourself, please.
Okay, yes. Good evening. We've met before. This is Jan and Anil Kumar. I just wanted to state that we were a little disappointed that
Your
members of
address,
the
please.
board.
Okay, I just wanted to.
I'm sorry. We are at 84 Moses Lane, the adjacent property on the other side of the fence.
Thank you.
And at the last meeting, it was our understanding that members of the board would also make a site visit to our property so that they could understand the impact of the proposed position of the new structure. And we were informed that they would be coming on the afternoon that they visited the 69 Halsey Yard. but nobody came to our property, and we're still very
Actually,
concerned.
actually, I did.
As well.
Yeah.
We were there.
John and
I
I-
was watching the
No, we were up
gate.
there, the
No,
gate was
The
closed.
gate was closed and
There was no one to
Yeah,
let us, but
and-
we were there.
No, no, no,
And
no. We had asked.
Well, I'm telling you, I walked up the driveway, we came to the gate was closed, we didn't gain access, and we did look at your house over the fence from the property, so I will tell you that we are informed, we did go look at the property.
The gate
All
is
right,
not
all right,
locked.
all right.
The gate is not locked.
I had left instructions to let yourselves in. The gate is always closed because of the deer. And we never saw anybody approach the house. So I'm sorry we didn't see you.
I'm
Cut you
sorry.
off.
Okay, but I will tell you, we did walk up and take a look, and we did take time while we were doing the property inspection, actually, to go to the fence and look over the fence to understand what the relationship of this property is to your property. We did do that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, so I'm going to accept the motion to accept the applicant's request for adjournment for 69 Halsey Street to October 23rd. Is there a second?
And the only reason we're adjourning it is because the plan wasn't submitted in time for the public to see it.
And also for me to see it, and I think for this one to have the other board members see it as well.
Well, John, you went there on Thursday. with the-
John, this is
No,
not.
no, That's not actually
No,
the
I
question.
want to
That's-
explain
John,
that it
John,
wasn't
that's-
an unusual
John, that's not
circumstance.
it.
Please, Mark, can you
Okay.
please make that known? It wasn't like I was delaying it.
No,
Meeting was
we're
on
aware of
Thursday.
that.
We tried to get it as quickly as possible.
We're aware of that.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Different rules, different people.
Do I have a second?
I just want to say before we close, we did also talk about the idea of maybe requesting a variance
Yeah.
for
I-
this. I'm just saying, before we close, I just wanted to say that we did also discuss the fact that maybe we would talk about requesting a variance for the property, the house we moved up closer, to be more conforming in the neighborhood. I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, I understand, it, and I have to respond to that. This is a house that is conforming in all aspects. It is not in a historic district. The board has no site plan authority, number one. Number two, the only section of the Southampton Village Code that allows there to be some sort of cross-fertilization, as it were, between the zoning board of appeals and the architectural review board is when a historic structure is involved. So there's not even any, and that's this express section in the code. There's not even any argument for me going to the zoning board of appeals, because I can fully conform and there are no difficulties in conforming, and there's no benefit that the applicant seeks that would override putting something in a conforming location. So you're literally asking me to put a square peg into a round hole, and that may be an uncomfortably overly legalistic argument to some people. I can't do anything about that, Jane. I'm not doubting your sincerity or anything like that.
I
but-
understand. We were questioning it because we've heard from a lot of the neighbors, and the scale and mass of the house is very large for that neighborhood, so that was one of the reasons why we thought maybe if the house was moved up, it would be actually more conforming. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring that point up because I have notes on it.
No, I understand that. I don't think it's legally an appropriate request.
Here's where I tell you where the precedent came from.
Mm-hmm.
Because this entire road is an unusual situation,
Mm-hmm.
where all the other houses are somewhere between 8 and 15 feet off the street.
Mm-hmm.
It's the kind of, and I understand that we as a board cannot require that a conforming house seek a variance. We cannot. I understand that by code. We ran into the same problem, set of circumstances, not a problem, set of circumstances, and we came up with the Heart of the Hamptons. Because in that particular case, it was not a historic structure. It was a warehouse, but they wanted to put a bump out a dormer that faced a neighbor versus bumping out a dormer that faced a parking lot. Now, the dormer that faced the neighbor was conforming. The dormer that faced the parking lot was non-conforming, and
I'm
therefore
aware
would
of it. I was
require.
consulted on it.
Right. So in that particular case, the ARB, when it went to zoning, because one thing zoning is there for is to look for when situations are unusual in a neighborhood, which is where we are with this house, because it's the only street like it, honestly, in the Hamptons where you have in Southampton Village where you had the shared garage and the way it was developed. In that case, the Architecture Review Board actually recommended and supported the application to the zoning board, and it took about one meeting, I believe, to get it done, because the zoning board took the Architecture Review Board's request into consideration to help that get done. So I think one of the conversations that has been had or implied has been that we would be supportive of that application to the zoning board to help it move along, and I think that's what Jane is referring to. Because I know we can't require it, but this is such an unusual case, I think it would do two things. It would, if we could figure out how to slide the house forward, it would increase the privacy we have to the neighbors next door, and it would relieve part of the situation the Kumars have on Moses, because you'd be pulling it farther away, the actual structure farther away from their house. So it would be maybe not the thing that you have to do, but it's a thing that would make sense in this situation if the applicant were willing. And that's what I have to say.
My response, totally without prejudice, is that the only way that I could even consider that would be if the neighbors, every one of them who was objected to this, agreed that if we're able to accomplish that, and I'm not saying I can do this because I have to have a discussion with my client, if the neighbors all agreed that if we were to accomplish that, they would be supportive of the house as constructed and drop any challenges here, then that may be a possibility. And then, of course, the board would have to say, yes, we support this house, but we want it moved. But I would not be doing my job if I allowed my client to get whipsawed like that.
I understand where you come from. It's just, this is
I hear you.
such an unusual situation.
I understand.
And actually, oddly, it would benefit the client, because if we could slide the house forward, which would benefit all people, they also have a larger backyard.
But you understand where I'm
No,
coming
I
from.
completely do.
Yeah.
But I walked into saying this is an unusual situation. And the precedent we have in that case, we couldn't compel them, but when they decided to, we supported as a board. And I feel fairly certain from the board perspective, if you were to make that request, we would be in support of and would write a letter in support of it in its favor, and why we're in support of it to the ZBA.
And the only way that I could consider recommending that to my client would be if both this board and the neighborhood, everyone who's objected here, says that they are supportive of that in full. Because otherwise I'd be wasting my time. I'd go to the zoning board of appeals. They may or may not grant it. I'd come back here. I'd still have to do this
totally
battle
understand
here.
what
So-
your concern would be.
Yeah, I understand it. Because it's a rather large concession.
Right.
People may not see it that way, but it actually is in terms of time and energy and effort and expense and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's something, and we can talk about that. And I
Okay.
welcome if council wants to talk to me about that before the
Okay.
next meeting. Or
I think it's a conversation that you guys can figure
Sure.
out amongst yourselves.
And again, that's all without prejudice.
No,
My
I
client may
understand.
say, "Are you crazy?" but
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. We'll see.
Yeah,
I hear what
you
you're
know,
saying.
because if in 1948, whatever that blue sheet was from when this had been proposed, similar to a neighborhood that's near me, the village might have looked at it differently today.
I understand.
How they might have looked at the requirements for that, and may have made different zoning requirements for that particular neighborhood. Who knows? But where we are today, I understand where the client is, but I also understand that one of the things we're just all sensitive to is how unique this street is, and everything that we can do to keep the unique nature of it. And part of the unique nature of it is spacing.
One
And
of
you
the
get that.
one of the problems that happened when the village did their upzonings in '83 and '84 and '85, I will tell you, for example, the block between, just for an example, the block between Gin Lane, Little Plains Road, South Main Street, that entire block heading north is zoned R120 now. The biggest lot you can find in there is a 2-acre lot, an 80,000 square foot lot. So what happened was in this rush to stop what people were concerned about was over subdivision of the village, they painted with a lot of broad strokes. So that's what happens, but, you know, we're stuck
Yeah,
with that.
no, we are where we are now.
But I'll take that back to the
Okay.
client. I understand
And
where and
if
why
it's
you're
something you
saying it.
guys want to have a conversation about,
Okay.
that'd be good. And then we'll see where we go from there.
Okay.
Because I think, you know, when it's such a unique, special neighborhood, and that all of us are working together to find the right solution for. So,
I understand.
Yeah.
I like that. I like what you're saying. I was at the Zoning Board of Appeals in West Hampton Beach the other night, and the chairman said something actually very nice to hear. He said, you know, the applicants, the neighbors, the board, we're all neighbors. So I understand it. So
Yeah.
I'll talk to my client.
and I feel like the client's been actually responsive and listening to all along to comments from the neighbors, so this is good.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so again, motion to accept the client's request for adjournment to October 23rd. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
All right, see you.
Okay, next up then is 1430 Meadow Lane for construction of attached garage.
It's John Bennett, and with me is Bruce Brano, the project architect. On September 19th, we submitted some additional renderings. Again, this is the construction of a proposed attached garage, 90 feet from Meadow Lane. It's located on the north side of an existing tennis court, and the structure itself is 10 feet 8 in height. When I say 10 feet 8 in this zone, you take it from the base floodplain elevation. So, and it's intended to serve both a garage and a tennis pavilion. It's primarily constructed of epay and cedar, consistent with the existing residence. Glass garage doors with black powder coated aluminum frames and a green roof. So, Bruce, do you want to just take us through the renderings that we have, and any other questions that the board has?
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. Give me a moment while I...
Can you just introduce yourself?
Sure. Bruce Brano. I'm the architect of record for the applicant. Okay.
I think you all saw this at the last meeting.
Yeah, we were here last week. We presented some renderings of the accessory structure. This is a game pavilion, also a garage. The idea is to kind of make it sort of subdue to the beautiful landscape here, really trying to make it disappear. Again, we showed you, this is what would be the view from Meadow Lane, which is virtually, the structure would be unseen.
The gates exist and approved.
Exactly. Thank you, John. We also will, there's a lot of coverage already. We will have more coverage. So the existing house is actually screening. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm glad John's here.
It's like, why would you say that?
So the existing house, the palette it's actually white painted cedar and an epay. There's sort of like an epay detailing that goes around. And this is sort of taking cues. It's a modernist house, and this structure is taking cues from that. Instead of going white, we decided to really try to make it dark and sort of kind of blend in with the landscape. So last time we were here, I think you guys asked us to show us some renderings of what this would look like with the doors closed. And you know, this is actually a very special. We also submitted a specification for this door. This is a custom steel. The finish is an anodized powder-coated paint, and the idea is that there would be these two steel doors that would open up, and it would just create this open canopy, which would actually overlook the tennis court. So the idea is really just to make this thing as light and inconspicuous as possible. So the board asked us to show. Now there's these renderings, it's a double-edged sword because it's not, you know, it's amazingly accurate, but at the same time it's not completely accurate. And I actually brought some just to sort of understand what we're looking at with the glass. Let me see if I can share some. We would love to propose a low iron glass, and if anyone knows these kind of detailings, it's basically like a very clear glass. So a lot of glass will have kind of a tint to it, and we would love to have a very clear. So you're seeing some reflections, and that may be a little bit deceiving. Let me see if I can show. an existing picture of the house. So you can see there's a green tint to this glass here. The railings are actually done in a low iron kind of
Can I
step.
just ask you a question?
Sure.
The last time we went through this, you threw up some pictures at the beginning of this, which is not this house. Don't you have this house? Isn't this house in front of zoning? Aren't you tearing this house down and renovating this house?
No.
I'm handling that for
But-
the zoning board.
But isn't there
We're not
isn't
tearing
there
the
isn't
house.
there a new renovation coming for this
Yeah.
house?
600 square foot renovation.
But you're changing the front of the house.
No.
No.
Yes,
Well,
We're keeping the
because you showed picture last time we went through this. You showed us the house that you're going toward
Mark, it's
by accident.
the idea. I was actually the architect of the original house. Our intent is to retain the beauty of this house. It was actually, these lots are very special because they have views of the ocean and the bay. There's this whole idea of this kind of modernist idea of transparency that moves through the house.
but this, let me
Yeah.
just stop everyone right
Sure.
here. This is an application for an accessory structure that stands on its own. Obviously, you want to see how it relates to the house. There's no question about it. The proposal before the zoning board of appeals, 5 meetings into it, is for a 620 square foot addition, pod about 300 feet in the front on the east side and extending out a little bit on the bottom. So it doesn't, it changes, we're far from demolishing the house, Mark. We're adding about a total of 600 square feet to it, that's all.
And what changes occurred at the front of the house?
Say again, I'm so sorry.
When the house changes, what changes occurred at the front of the house?
This is
Otherwise, there's no
existing.
point.
Yeah,
in
this is the
comparing.
existing.
Because I mean, we're a little out of order here because we're looking at the garage, but you're going to do the house, and one of our questions is the house that's going.
Yeah, I'm trying to show glass and also the existing palette. So you can see that, actually, let me share.
Is the palette going to change?
Palette is not going to change. Thank you, Counselor. And I guess my point is that these renderings are not perfect, and the idea is there's this beautiful ipe. It ages beautiful. I mean, it's a really harsh environment. These woods actually take a beating. The ipe actually gets more beautiful with age, and that's the idea here, is that we'll pick up on some of the detailing. And the idea is that this building is really, it's very humble in its presentation. And yeah, 10 feet high. I think we also presented elevations to the board. We're allowed to go much higher. We actually decided to bring this thing down to remain humble, to really kind of, so it's sort of absorbed into the landscape. This is a sort of aerial photo, and we're even going so far as to put a green roof on top of it. So, if anyone,
Does that rendering show the house with the addition?
this rendering,
We're obviously not here asking for
Right.
approval.
yes,
No, but
it does.
Yes, because when I look at the rendering versus the existing house, they're not the same. So I'm just looking. So I just want to understand.
Is the grade changing underneath the structure?
Very, very slightly. I think we'll probably be excavating, obviously, for our foundations and kind of regrading around. But
But the height is not, the elevation of the grade is not changing.
very, very slightly. There is actually kind of a
To what degree then?
very slightly. I don't-
Slightly is not definitive.
There's an existing mound that's there, so if anything, it's probably very minimal. But they're probably, to be honest, like we're building a structure there, so
But you don't know.
yes, we actually there's actually a contour and a site plan that show existing grade, and so it's very minimal.
And just remember, the height is taken in this.
My question is about the change of the existing grade.
Lower, higher?
That's my question.
That's your question.
Yeah.
Can you ask the question, please?
Yes.
We're not raising the grade.
No.
And we can't lower it that much, because I bet you the depth of
That
grade
was-
is about a foot and a half.
John, just.
That was simply my question.
Yeah,
Is the
no.
grade underneath the structure itself?
In my
changing?
mind, I'm cutting a section kind of, east-west through.
Because then it would change the elevation from the street. That's my question.
Absolutely, no, absolutely. And you don't see it from the street.
It's very simple question.
Yeah.
No, if it's not changing at all, then that's fine. That was my question. Because it would impact the view from the street.
Right.
If it were above the, so you're saying it's not changing at all? The grade beneath the
Grade
structure.
on the
The
Meadow
approach
Lane
grade.
side.
The approach, you're
No,
asking
no.
about the approach grade?
Just the elevation under the building itself. Is it changing? Is it lower or higher than what currently exists?
So it's not a simple question, John, and I respect the question, because it's, if you cut a section through an existing section, there's actually grade differences, and you can see that in the,
Maybe I'm not asking my question the right way.
really simple question, because I think if I may,
Sure.
we're on the same team, but I
Sure.
think
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
overcomplicating it.
okay.
Is this building gonna sit on, are you gonna drive onto a slab that's gonna be built on the grade? Or are we excavating or bringing in fill? Yeah, it's a simple question. You're gonna bring in any fill, you can only bring.
I mean, I would assume a surveyor would know that answer, right? I mean, that's what they do.
When you say you're excavating, you're just talking about for footings,
Right,
correct?
correct.
You're just talking about for footings.
It's a slab on grade structure.
It's a slab on grade,
Yeah.
okay. and
On the
you're not gonna
existing
bring
grade.
in- You're not gonna do any cut
the-
fill underneath the garage.
This is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that,
Thank you, John.
Right.
I'm sorry.
thank you, sorry. Took a little while, but I think we got it.
No, that's, yeah,
Thank you for the
question
translation.
answered, thank you.
Appreciate it. So we were here last time, and so the two questions they wanted, you guys wanted to see the doors closed, the doors open. We provided that, and then we also wanted to know about the finishes and so what we did was we really love to custom match the paint color to the Ipe, and we brought a few samples to show you. They go from gloss to matte, and I don't know how should I present these or.
Just pass them to Jane and we'll.
My preference would be matte because, again, in this effort to kind of sort of be absorbed into the landscape and kind of, even absorb light, technically
Yeah.
speaking.
And so which color are you thinking here, or you don't know yet?
It'd probably be the as close to the Ipe as possible, so it's almost like a grayish brown. And so we gave kind of a variation, but the idea is to get as close to this.
Which one is that?
Yeah, if it were a matte finish, I think that would be the
Yeah,
best
yeah,
idea.
My question also is, if you're trying to match the house, but you're saying the garage is gonna be darker, is it going to fade to match the house, or is it gonna stay dark?
It would be fade if it would fade to match the house.
You said that before.
Yeah, it would. We're trying to match the Ipe on the house. So the idea is that over time it ages and it looks
Just because
develops.
Again, when you show this compared to what the house looks like right now, this looks much darker. than
Right,
what the
and-
house is. So I'm just
Because
asking,
it's
this
fresh
will
wood.
fade
Yeah.
to match the house. is
And
what I-
Jane, that's a fair comment. And if I could just caveat the renderings, it's not if I were here just doing a watercoloring, I'm actually going much further. And there's a double-edged sword to the rendering. It's not perfect, but the idea is that we're using the same materials from the house, and over time you'd get the same effect, and
Yeah.
that's the idea.
Just want to make sure, because you had said we thought about going lighter, but we went darker, so just.
So, and that's a great point. The house has white painted cedar with Ipe accents. So there's a lot of deck. There's decks on the bay side because the sunsets are so beautiful on the bay side. There's decks on the ocean side because it's the Atlantic Ocean. And that's this sort of Ipe deck
Right.
kind of folds through the project.
But it's gonna fade, these materials are gonna fade would be your testimony to the color, generally the color of those same materials on the existing cement.
Correct.
And-
Okay.
I know which is your favorite of those? The silver? The gray-
Yeah, so
the lighter gray?
So I love the matte finishes on the black, and then the grays are a little too satin and glossy. And so I got a kind of a variation to show you, but I'd probably like to go a little more gray brown.
Yeah.
And we're gonna the beautiful thing about this this window system is they'll custom match exactly. So we'll probably do, we'll probably create 100 of
The
these
matte
samples.
finish looks much.
The match,
Yeah.
and the lighter matter finishes are the
Yeah,
black
the-
brown, but
a
not
lighter
the
matter.
black. But not the
Lighter
black,
matte
yeah.
finish.
You want to leave, is there a number on it, or?
Well, but it's the one it's the a crown black anodized, at least from a finish standpoint.
Yeah, I love that.
But what about from
Yeah.
a color
But the
standpoint?
color would be,
The color would be silver?
it would be,
It would be, if I could sort of.
Because like Ipe goes to like a medium
Yeah.
dark silver.
So that's just illustrative of the finish,
Okay.
not the color.
correct.
As long as the finish is matte finish is great.
Right. And
Okay.
even the Ipe, I mean, I'm sort of zooming in here, whether it's wet or it's dry, but it has this kind of beautiful kind of silver.
Well, it turns sort of red when it gets wet.
Red.
I got a whole backyard of it. Yeah, when Ipe
So,
gets wet.
so you've probably, is it finished? It probably has a stained finish?
Nope, it's completely natural. But when it gets wet, it almost turns like a little bit.
If you
a little
power
bit of
wash
red.
it,
yeah.
it kinda
and then
picks
it
up a
turns
little
back
bit of a
and then
red.
it turns back silver
Yeah.
when it dries.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Weighs a ton. It's beautiful.
It does.
All right.
And you can see even the windows on the existing house, have that eBay finish when they're sort of.
Well,
in the eBay.
since you asked us to consider the rendering of the new house, will the renovated house have the same kind of treatments? Because the real question now, because you forced us to think about it, is this in relation to what will be?
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely. We think about the whole property holistically, and that's we wouldn't even consider the project without thinking about the whole property.
So
Okay.
what's the answer to the question?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Well, I can answer your question, are the treatment's gonna be the same when you renovate, are you gonna reskin the house or just do the addition?
I already asked that and he said yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I just have one comment, suggestion. When you look at this rendering, I imagine that if you look straight on from the gate, the way that the landscaping is done, there would still be kind of a view to the structure. Would it be possible to extend the, like, see how the landscaping just ends there? What if it were just like curved around a little deeper there and here? It would completely block anything from the street, and it doesn't really obscure anything here.
It's a great suggestion.
Actually, it makes it more private for whatever use they're,
So that could be stated as proposed landscaping to.
curve and
Like a
extend.
return almost?
Well, not a return, just like making it like curve a bit with another tree.
Yeah, I think I love that I think that's a great idea.
Share with two additional trees?
Or I may not even need to, but I'm
Yeah.
just enough to
Softens it,
yeah.
it gives it more privacy.
Right, to have it come here.
Not at all.
You're hired.
Thank you, John. That's great.
And that has to be very wide too, so it's
Yeah.
not gonna constrict any parking or,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. No, that'd be great. It's a great suggestion.
Do you have a site plan that shows that, a planning plan that shows that you could modify it?
Yep, absolutely.
You know, pull that out?
I have a digital copy. I don't have a hard copy right now.
I mean,
can,
you
Well,
could,
we can
I
use
can-
one of the file copies for that.
there, in the package that we submitted, I can.
I mean, it's really as simple as this,
Yeah, perfect.
so
John's giving you one.
Thank you.
can you just sign this one?
Why don't we pull the full size? Why don't we
Yeah,
mark
I'd
the
rather
full?
get the
Yeah,
one
I want the one that we're
file
going to sign.
have it stamped. And then when you mark it, if you can just
14:30.
sign it.
Of course. Thank you so much.
I hate to propose him.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
I think the attorney would retire.
John's my savior. Yeah, there it is right here. I think the plan version would probably be the most, this is a sort of a plan to scale, so.
So the idea would just be to extend it
Absolutely.
this way and maybe a bit that way.
I think it's a great idea.
So then when you're, there's no way it just makes it more private. And buffers it a little bit more.
Put John Hancock there. Okay, and your name underneath.
Yeah, and your name underneath. So I know it's not modern art. Okay, with that signature.
Well, I remember watching a show, somebody was interviewing Alexander Calder, and he was playing with a paperclip, and the guy tried to take it from him, and Calder went,
right, do we have any comments from the public? Okay. Any other comments?
I'm good.
Any other comments?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. So I'm going to motion to accept the application for the garage at 1430 Meadow Lane. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There you go.
Thank you so much.
Do you want your sample?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Stand right there, because it's coming up right now. Okay, so for 71 Hill Street, for the public, this is a project that has been on the books for a while, but it's been on the agenda for a while. But since it was originally put on the agenda, it has changed architects. Matter of fact, it's also changed attorneys. So what we would like to do is remove it from the agenda because we actually don't know when it's coming back. And then we have a letter from Mr. Bennett that states he's okay with us to table. So what we're going to do is table this from the agenda until such time as, without prejudice, it comes back. Is that correct?
Correct, and I just wanted to assure the board, as obviously, when it comes back, it would have to be renoticed and republished or whatever it is.
Because
it
it's
will
gonna be an
a
entirely new
projection,
project. Yeah.
But I appreciate the board's patience.
Okay. So is it a motion to table and remove? Motion to table the application for 71 Hill Street and remove from the agenda 71 Hill Street until such time as the applicant comes back with the project. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next up on the agenda is 52 South Roscoe, but we are not hearing that tonight. If you were not here at the top of the meeting, the files that were given to the board, and I know that they called you today from the building department, were not sufficient. Therefore, we're not hearing it tonight.
I did file everything.
No, what we have as a board are very thin. We have elevations. That's all we have. I don't have materials call out.
I have the material called out.
They're not in,
all
but
the
they're not in what we received. So in what you have supplied to the board, the materials are insufficient. Therefore, the file is incomplete, and therefore, we're not going to hear it until the next meeting.
Yeah, I understand that that's what they told me. The problem is that I cannot improve. I don't know what was wrong with the drawing. Because I did
This
call
is
it
not your
out.
first, look, you've been with us in front
Yeah,
a lot.
I did.
And there's,
but-
you know what the rules are, because they're actually printed. And when I went down the rules, there is not a survey that has the name of the surveyor on it, for example. There were no pictures in the files that were given of existing. There are no interior floor plans that we were given. All we were given were existing elevations. That's all we have. And it is not, but they were not given to us, therefore the file is incomplete because it was not to us on time. So it is not, because this board and the public have not had time to review materials for this project. Therefore, we are not going to hear tonight, and therefore, we've adjourned it. So if you have questions, go back to the building department and ask them what was missing from the file and supply everything that should be in the file. They will hear to. But this afternoon is too late. The deadline was last Tuesday. I'm really not going to,
This is
we're
not a
not going to debate this anymore. Because had you been at the beginning of the meeting, you would have heard, and I had the building department call you today to tell you that the file is incomplete.
I went there, they looked at it and they told me they don't know what's wrong with it.
Well, then I suggest then you go back and talk to the building department, because the materials we have are not sufficient to review the project.
Could I have the file? I'll take a look at it.
No, you may not. If you go back to the building department, they will help you at this
I
point.
was there this
Okay,
afternoon.
well, that sounds like you'll be there tomorrow. I can't help you from here. All I can tell you is the file is incomplete, and we're not going to hear it tonight. And I'm sorry you sat through the meeting. I did announce it at the top of the meeting.
But it was fine.
Okay. You're gonna have to talk to the building department.
But I really need to know what was.
Then you really need to talk to the building
They
department,
will let you know.
and they should tell you.
Alex was the
Okay,
one
we're not
who
gonna,
told
we're
me.
not gonna continue this.
Alex was the one
No.
who told me he doesn't
No.
understand.
Then you
why.
go back and talk to Alex. Alex has emails from me telling him what is missing from the file. So if you'll go back and talk to them, okay? Okay, so we're gonna move on.
Sorry.
I know, but they did call you to tell you, I will tell you, they did call you to tell you we were not going to hear your case tonight.
I
Yeah.
don't mind talking about the pictures.
Yeah.
What I want to know, what's wrong with the
Okay,
color?
I'm going again. Talk to the building department tomorrow and make sure everything that's required in the file is in the file. Okay, we're in.
Alex has an email
we're-
from Mark
we're
outlining
in,
exactly
we're
what
in
was
circles
missing.
now, so we're going to move on. Okay,
He was the one who told me there's nothing wrong.
then go back and talk to Alex. The problem here is between the application and what you were told from the building department, so I'm gonna ask you to solve it there, okay? All right, so we're moving on to 130 Powell, which is a new application for a demolition evaluation and construction. Do you have the affidavits, and are they in order?
Yes.
Great. Hello?
Mayron, Studio B&M Architecture, on behalf of 130 Powell LLC. I have it here anyway.
The affidavits? You have the affidavits? I'll take them.
Good evening. Mayron. I just received the renderings today from the owner, last minute, so I have printed enough copies for the board members.
Okay.
And
But before we get started, John, do you remember discussing this house before?
It's familiar.
Because I do.
But we don't have a demo permit approved yet.
No, we don't. I just remember at one point, this house was recently purchased?
No, it's been, the owners have had it for a while, as far
Okay.
as I know.
Okay. Jackie, do you have any do you have recollection of this? Yeah, okay. Because I know at one point, and I feel like it was 2 years ago maybe,
Right.
I did a site inspection and walked around it. And I
Yeah.
just, and maybe it, I don't know what happened from there, but okay. But I know that I don't have a historic evaluation of the house. Yeah.
Was it recently?
No, about 2 years ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I think.
Is
so.
this the front elevation?
That is the front, yes, sir.
It doesn't match the details that have been provided. The garage is not on the front of this front elevation.
Oh, no, you have these are not the correct drawings.
Hmm.
So why don't we start with the demo, because
Well, okay, let me start with one thing. Because of the age of the house, one thing we are going to do is requested our historic consultant take a look at the house. Because of the age of the house, so we are going to do that before we approve a
I'm sorry, I
demolition.
didn't get that.
We're gonna ask Zach, our historic consultant, to take a look at the house.
Sure.
And then get a report on it.
Okay.
So we're
That
not
is
gonna,
for-
we're not gonna vote on demolition tonight because we
Right.
need a historic report
Okay.
back. Okay?
and I think it's Southampton, it's a quintessential Southampton home. I think we need to talk about possibly saving as much of this as we can before we think about demolishing it.
Okay.
So the board did look at this house, in 2021.
Okay, so I'm not
So
crazy.
it wasn't that long ago.
Okay.
I mean, not,
About 2 years ago, okay. I have
the-
some memory left at my age.
The board, did vote to notice for landmarking,
Okay,
and then the applicant withdrew the request.
okay.
Oh.
So we never had a historic evaluation done because the applicant withdrew.
Yeah.
Okay,
there you have it.
That-
The house was constructed.
that follows along
in-
what I thought.
In
Okay.
1870.
Oh,
Yeah.
that changes everything.
So what does that mean to our application tonight?
What it means to your application tonight is, honestly, we need to get the historic consultant now to go look at it, because the original intent of the board 2 years ago, because it's such an old house,
Right.
was to get a historic evaluation of the house.
Mhm.
The applicant withdrew, so we never went to that step.
Right.
But before we would ever vote to and make any decision about demolition, we would want that report based on the age of the house. So now that we have an application, we will ask Alex Wallach to contact Zach, and we will have that report done.
Right.
Once that report is done, would determine how the board feels about either we landmark the house. Because they're not in a historic district, the board has two choices. We can vote to landmark the house, or we can vote to, or not landmark the house.
Right.
So, but we don't know what we'll do until we get that evaluation. If we chose to,
Although-
Was it suggestion to landmark it then, or just to have an evaluation?
I don't know. I'd need a little more time to read through my
Yeah.
notes in the minutes to know for sure. I wish my memory was that good, but it's not. But I will say that given our meeting schedule, I'm gonna say that at the next meeting, we need to vote.
Okay, well, that gives us a month.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will immediately get the historic report, so we would know by the next meeting.
So, the board has 45 days to decide whether they're going to grant a demolition or notice for landmarking. Of course, you can consent to extend that, but, you know, my advice to the board in order to protect, you know, the board's interests would be that, they should vote at that next meeting. So we'll have to make sure we get Zach's report in time.
Okay. Fortunately, we have a month. So what we need to do is we need to get that, it would behoove you, I guess, two things. Right now, the renderings don't match the drawings, but we can fix that later. But the, what behoove us to know is like, where we stand on the house, on the fate of the house, before we start talking about the architecture of what might replace it.
Right.
So I think your best interest, and I'm sorry, but the best interest is for us to get the historic report, get that all straightened out, and then from there discuss the architecture. But I will say, if the board members are comfortable giving you feedback, understanding that we're not guaranteeing that,
Right,
that
so
there is
would
no
be
decision.
vote
Yeah,
tonight.
just some early thoughts since you're here and some evaluation thoughts on the plan.
Mhm.
I feel that's fine.
Assuming a demo is approved.
Yeah. Okay,
And if not, you can propose a renovation.
okay.
Exactly. But I don't know what I'm looking at. So is it the rendering or is it the,
This copy, this
I-
was submitted to the.
I don't have that one. Do you have, does anyone
I
else have?
have an August 24th.
That's
I have
what
August 24th.
I have nothing newer than August 24th.
August 24th is what I have here.
Did you supply
We
newer
submitted
plans?
One with the garage door in the front though,
Do
When
you
did
have
you,
a date of submission?
when did you submit it?
more than 10 days ago.
Okay.
Well, not surprising, but
Well, it's not what's in the file. Tell you what, just since we're not voting tonight, distribute, we'll,
There's only one copy, so.
you know what? Then put on the table and we can all look at it together on the screens.
So, question, there's gonna be no vote for the architecture tonight?
No.
No, okay.
No. We wouldn't vote on the
But,
architect. We have to understand the fate of the house before I understand what we'd vote on for it to look like.
So let's hear the comments then.
Well, why don't you take us through it?
So, all right, let's start with the property.
Okay.
0.4 acres, 130 Powell. Drawings were submitted, or the drawings you may not have. I think the only difference is between those old drawings and these, the garage door was moved to the front due to the side yard being too narrow for the cars to get in
To
and
turn
get out.
in.
Yes. What we're using, everything we have as far as zoning restrictions, lot area, GFA, and lot coverage, we meet the zoning of R 7.5, height and all that. The material on the outside would be cedar, painted gray. This may not be the exact color, but that's very, very close to it. The roof would be cedar, left natural. Windows would be all casement, all the same, fenestration in terms of sizes. Garage door would be white, white fascias and rakes, either pine or AZAC, in either case white. What do you see in the front, white louvers, PVC.
is that functional or decorative?
They're functional,
It is
yeah, they're intended to be functional, because we're gonna have an attic, no sloping ceilings or whatnot. Casing around the windows would be either pine or AZAC. I would recommend AZAC, less maintenance, all white, 3.5 inches.
Okay.
And that is it, that is pretty
Okay.
much it.
We're going to give you really brief comments, just
Sure.
simply because the drawings that we've studied don't actually match the house that you want to build. Because this rendering, the drawings that are in our file
Right.
have the garage on the side and the front and so other than comments, you guys go ahead with comments about fenestration maybe, or color or direction.
Yeah.
But the actual, the rendering you've handed out doesn't match the drawings you've been studying, so, and then we'll get a historic report and you
We'll-
can sync
we'll
all that
make
up.
sure they're
You can
coordinated.
sync all that up, and then we'll all be talking about the same thing. Okay?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
In general, I have no issue with the design or the materials or the lighting in the front. I think the fenestration on what you show as the right side is a little light. It just seems like a big blank wall, so perhaps that could be looked at. And even the rear of the house, there's no balcony, thank God. The only thing that looks a little odd to me are the two windows on the second floor in the center, and the way the gable hits the, I guess, overhang above those windows, right here. Right here,
Right, right.
that just seems a little awkward.
Well,
Let
may
me
not-
finish.
May not mean anything to the board members, but that's a product of how the second floor evolved based on 12 or 14 different revisions from the homeowner, so.
Oh, yeah.
many
You're
options.
right, that doesn't mean anything to the board. What we
It's
look at
not-
is what we're looking at is what does it look like to the public, so, okay.
But we understand your difficulty. It's
Right.
not easy pleasing everyone. I know that in my own career. That's my only comment, and I'm not sure how the board feels about the garage door and the garage in the front. We kind of frown on that, but.
We
because
generally
of the
frown on garage
location,
doors facing the front.
This location is a bit different than the core village, so maybe that is less of an issue. I don't know, but my main comment is really the fenestration on the one side, and then the way that window and the eaves connect on the
Right,
second floor.
right.
The
Well,
rear.
you're talking about the rear.
Rear, right.
Right, right.
I get,
I have a question about the gray, cedar shake, as opposed to the roof would be left natural, but the house would be gray. I'm just, curious as to, is that again the,
Many homes have been done as such. I can probably name a few in the village. I
I've
can
seen
think
quite a
of.
few. I'm just curious
Right.
whether that is the request of your client, or is that
It's a
something you're
client's
doing?
request, and honestly, in 4 or 5 years, this roof that looks kind of yellowish in this rendering would be
It would be,
great.
right, and.
So with the siding.
So with the siding,
Yeah.
right, I think would be so much more attractive, but, just a question, that's
Right.
all. So that's coming from the client is asking for that, okay.
at this moment, I would tell you, we really don't, as a village, love garage doors that face the street.
Neither do I.
You seem, this is if, once we understand the fate of the house, a new house were to be built, and you've got a tabula rasa where you've got the land, you have the principal setback to do a house that's narrower and longer, because you need 30 feet to swing into a garage, and you don't have it right now. So, that would be the one thing I think would be in consideration. But for that, other than that, I'm gonna see if there are any public comments, but I think let's put this away, let's get drawings that match renderings, and let's get a historic report, and then let's treat this fairly.
Mark, let me understand this. So there would be an issue with the garage door facing the front?
We don't prefer it. Yeah,
I
if there are solutions
totally understand
if there are solutions that doesn't happen, that's what we prefer.
Let me just look at the survey for a second.
Yeah. Oh, for the days of the 5-foot setback for garages.
Close to 18 feet, 19 feet on that
Yeah.
side. See the garage doors are here now.
Yep.
They could be here, but there would be no way a car can get in and out
Yeah.
without making 11 turns.
Unless it had to be some sort of
Maybe a turn.
rear yard garage or. Anyway, that's a comment for now because because what we're looking at is so unmatching. So why don't we,
Mark, many houses we've done hardly ever have the garage doors in the front.
Right.
Even in a town where it doesn't have ARBs, like
Yeah.
Southampton town, on small lots.
yeah,
But this is really tight. I mean, you're talking 80 feet here.
no, I understand. Is there an existing garage in the back?
No, there is an existing shed.
Was that shed at one time a garage? Because that looks like it's not deep enough for a garage.
Was that?
Is that deep enough for a garage back there?
It should be part of my drawings, though.
Yeah. All right, well, let me ask this. Are there any public comments? All right, for next time, we'll sync up drawings and
2 weeks?
it'll be the 23rd of October. 2 weeks is Columbus Day, so we don't have a meeting. So it'll be a month,
So,
which would be good for you because it gives us time to get the historic report in from Zach.
so is it our responsibility to bring Zach in here?
No,
or
we do it.
Alex?
We'll do it. The village will reach out to Zach because he's representing the village in this
Right.
case.
So Zach would be here and I have to come back with new material and all that?
Yeah.
He'll come back with a report about the existing home, and you'll
Mhm.
come back with revised plans, assuming that the house will
And
be
then
demolished.
we'll see where it goes.
I'll just write this down because my memory is very, very vague these days. October 23rd?
Yes, sir.
Very good, guys.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a
Okay.
good night.
Same to you, my friend. Motion to accept the applicant's request for adjournment for 1:30 Powell to October 23rd. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Next up is 31 Pheasant Close for a demolition evaluation and new draw.
Have a good night.
Do you have the affidavits and are they in order?
Yes, they are.
Great.
Good evening,
Hello?
Raymond Renault, architect for the clients. Jill and David Robbins from AWN Holdings. Property address is 31 Pheasant Close North.
Okay.
A little bit about the existing dwelling
Well,
that's there.
are you going to lay your presentation out or are you going to put it on the screen?
Oh,
It's for the public to see, so.
okay, I have 11 by 17s, is that okay? We're gonna zoom in as well on the screen, I guess.
Hold on,
Okay.
put the camera on it.
See if Sage can grab that. Sorry, sir?
Okay. Not exactly sure how to do that from here.
Oh. You would have to go into Zoom, sign into the meeting, and then share your screen.
Gotcha. Is that on the village website, I guess?
Yeah, you have to go to. Sage can help you.
People just don't do their homework, do they?
It's like, it's like one of those start over things.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Well, the good news is it's easier for the public to see.
Yeah,
Okay?
thank you. This is these are photographs of the existing house and surrounding properties. The existing house was built in 1999. It is a 2,700 square foot, 4-bedroom, 4-bath, and the property is approximately 2.2 acres. The existing house is kind of a, rambling ranch that has a small 2-story portion on the, I guess that would be the west side. And an attached garage that has garage doors that face the street, and an existing pool in the backyard. Nothing historic or really architecturally significant about this structure. It's actually a home that seems to have been added onto several times over its history, short history. That's all I have for the existing structure.
Okay. Let's move on to your proposal.
Sure. We are proposing a new construction house. This house is, I think, about 7,600 square feet. We worked with our client to create a new residential structure that meets their needs. Is a bit of a modern update from what's there. It would have a new sunken tennis court, a new pool, and a new pool cabana, and then a series of connected outdoor spaces as well. The materials that we'll be using for this house would be center matched vertical grain red cedar for the sidewalls, and standing seam aluminum roof in a dark bronze finish. All of the windows would also match that dark bronze finish. And we also are proposing that the center section in the front and in the rear will have some limestone panels that will be flush, and probably about a 2x4 panel size. So large flush limestone panels. We're proposing 2 curb cuts and a parking area in the front. You'll notice that the house is set back to the corner of the new garage. I think the required 80 feet. And the positioning of the house was very thoughtfully gone through for the path of the sun throughout the day to maximize the sun for the client. And also tucking the tennis court into that northeasterly corner will allow to help buffer some of the sounds from the adjacent tennis courts that they're surrounded by. I think that's the gist of it.
Okay. Counselor, do you want us to handle the demo evaluation first and the architecture second?
I'm confused as to whether this is just a demolition request or a demo evaluation. The house was constructed in
99?
1999, so it's not a house that we would landmark,
Well, it also wouldn't be a demo evaluation,
because
they don't
Yeah, I
need a
thought
demo
that was-
permit
they
from
don't need a
us.
permit from us.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I think the agenda is perhaps just written incorrectly.
Okay, that's what I'm asking you. Okay,
Because it's not necessary, it's not needed, not
No.
required.
because
So, no need to vote
it's
on
not
that.
more
It's
than
too
50
new.
years old. Okay, so let's go straight to the architecture.
Sure.
Let me just say, I'm gonna be really honest with you. Did you drive around this neighborhood at all before you presented us this plan?
Yeah, I've driven through that neighborhood quite a bit.
Okay, and when you look at, and have you watched any of these meetings?
I have not watched any of these meetings.
Okay,
I have been
Oh.
before the board before.
okay, John.
First of all, is there existing, currently, one curb cut or 2?
There's currently one curb cut.
Okay, that's one problem, or one issue.
Okay.
Secondly, the parking lot in front of the house is a bit overwhelming, and it gives the appearance of a convention center as opposed to a residential property. The standing seam roof is a non-starter. I don't think we've ever approved a metal roof in the village of Southampton. Let me finish.
Let us finish.
The size and scale of the windows are just out of proportion with the window to wall ratio, first of all. But we have, not to my knowledge, ever approved, roof to floor to ground windows on a home. And you seem to have them on every side of the house.
Yeah.
And the back of the house is essentially all windows, and the black windows at that, or the black framed windows at that. The balconies, we would need to see a site plan to know what that presents from a privacy issue to the neighbors. Even though it's a 2.5 acre lot, this is a sizable house, so that could be an issue. And depending on the height of that first floor, it could be 12 feet in the air for all we know. So that's an issue. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, that's,
Jane?
Well, definitely, at first glance, I thought John put it very politely, it almost looks like more like the Rite Aid parking lot. It looks so big in the front. And if you already are asking for a second curb cut to go into the garage there, you're way in excess of what parking is needed. You've got, it looks like 2 on the side of the if you want to call it a service entrance to the garage. You already have 2 parking spots there.
Yes.
And then it looks
Probably
like,
about 3 there.
looks like you've got maybe 8 to 10 in the front of the house.
Probably about 8, yes.
Yeah, that seems just absolute overkill. And definitely it's the ratio of glass, the wall to glass, it's just much more than we would ever consider.
I also forgot to add the see-through nature of the front entrance through the back. That's something I don't think we've ever approved that either. That's the big issue we have with that ox pasture home. Remember that they had that big modern glass
Gaping maw front
see-through
door, yeah.
to the rear of the house.
Here would be my comment. This, if you drive around this neighborhood, they're mostly shingle houses, and they're mostly built on classic forms. There are 1 or 2 a little more modern expressions of classic forms. If you go down all the way down around north to the first turn to the right, there's a White House on the corner that's slightly more, but that was a redesign. There was a house that's done, a matter of fact, just across the street from this that was just completed by Mr. Laffey. That is, again, a classic house on classic forms. And when we look in this neighborhood, there's sort of a language and a rhythm to the neighborhood that this house actually defies, to the point that I find it architecturally disharmonious with its neighborhood. A metal standing seam roof is not something we would approve, and it's not right for this neighborhood. When you look at, if you've gone through the design guidelines for the building, one of the things we look at is window-to-wall ratio, and your window-to-wall ratio is way over the guidelines of what we would approve, because the opportunity for light pollution left, right, and sideways for this house is too big. So I think the issues of the parking lot, true. A funny thing about when you turn off of Pheasant Close onto Pheasant Close North, you notice you go across a speed bump on Pheasant Close, and right when you turn from this house, you go for another speed bump, and there's a reason for that. There's a lot of traffic that goes around that circle.
Sure.
So from just a danger standpoint, I think the curb cut that you're looking at next to Pheasant Close, that's for the building department really, but that's a dangerous place to put a curb cut.
Understood.
Because I run through there and I watch what happens. There's a lot of bicycles and stuff that goes through, and I don't think that's right. But you've got a massive amount of hardscape here going on that makes it look commercial. From a color standpoint, a material standpoint, I almost think you have to rethink it. It's such a departure, and an unfriendly departure from that neighborhood, that I actually find that the scale and the massing of the house architecturally disharmonious with its neighborhood.
Okay. There's a house on Downs Path, I think, as you're,
Yes,
that also has a metal roof on it.
yes.
Is that within the village, or is that,
Downs Path is within the village,
yeah,
yes. Yes, you'll find the occasional house.
okay.
But we don't find, those, I don't find
Within this
those materials
neighborhood.
appropriate, and we haven't approved them.
This board
Some
has
of
a,
them are
We have not
illegal.
approved them. Pardon?
yeah, some are legal.
And some-
illegal,
yes.
Well, that's a
and
whole
then
different
litigation.
story.
Yes,
And still in
yes.
litigation.
We
as
have a
far as
few
I'm
of those
aware.
too.
Yeah.
Understood.
So I would suggest, instead of going through issue by issue, first of all, the window to wall ratio is so big that the light and pollution issues would be huge for all the neighbors around here.
Sure.
And I think it would behoove you to drive through and look at a little closer at the architectural language. If you're trying to do a more transitional expression of that architectural language, that's one thing. This is a departure that, in its current form, looks commercial. And it looks, with the size of the parking lot in front, the amount of hardscape is well over what I would consider to be reasonable for a house, even at this size. Because
Understood.
you can park about 26 cars. It's a little crazy.
Also
Yeah.
keep in mind when you're doing this, I know this property well, and there are on the existing driveway right now, there's some beautiful mature cherry trees there.
Yes,
So like you don't have them on your plan, so
Mhm.
I would keep that in mind, that you're gonna wanna retain whatever mature trees that you can.
Sure.
Okay. Are there comments from the public? Okay. So I'm hearing you ask for an adjournment.
yes.
Okay.
Thank you very
Our
much.
next meeting is not until October 23rd because of the holiday, and the due date for new materials is the 17th.
Okay.
Okay?
Is there a percentage in the design guidelines of,
Yes, if you read through, then there are,
What you're looking for.
the village design guidelines, there are recommendations.
thank you so much.
So I'm going to move we accept the applicant's request for an adjournment for 31 Pheasant Close North to October 23rd. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is 222 White Street for construction of a two-story addition and alterations. Do you have the affidavits, and are they in order?
Yes and yes.
Great. Good evening. Somebody had fun with the stapling machine here. Okay.
Good evening.
Please start by introducing yourself for us.
Good evening. My name is Bill Slight. I'm an architect. My office is in Watermill. What I have here is a proposal for a new residence at 222 White Street. There's currently a one-story ranch-style house on this property. We do not intend to demolish that house, but we do intend to put a second story on it. We're slightly changing the footprint, but as far as the percentage of the lot occupied by the old building and the new building are about the same. The new home will have a Burrell type of siding with board and batten. The windows are intended to be a gunmetal gray frame and sash with a cadet gray trim, and that trim will also be on the rake boards of the house and on a water course around the base of the house. The roof of the building will be asphalt shingles. It is called a cobblestone gray, which is a modeled shades of gray. And I have samples of those materials here, and also a color rendering of the house.
Ah, there it is. Okay. Okay, board members? The only rendering you have is the front elevation,
That's correct.
which is the
Yes.
north elevation?
Yes.
Okay.
Just in general, we would need to see samples of the windows and the trim board, so we know exactly what the colors are.
That's what I
We
have
move.
here.
Oh, you do. Okay.
Yes. We-
This is the siding.
This is the siding, it's a barrel siding, and that's a gunmetal, and this is the cadet gray.
So this is the window frame.
Yes.
Okay. And it's just the rendering that kind of throws me off. It's very stark. And the first impression, and don't take this, it's like a pinstripe suit. But it's only because of the shadowing of the way it's rendered. I think it's a very straightforward, simple design, which I appreciate. I think the standing seam detail over the window is fine because it's just an accent. I would prefer to see this is much too dark for my in my opinion, based on what we have approved in the village and what's traditional for the village itself. We have approved gray windows and trim, but it's more in this shade, if not lighter than this. And the front entry just seems a bit commercial in a way. A lot of windows and opening across the front entrance. So I would take a second look at that. And on the south elevation, there's almost appearance of roof to ground level windows with a small gap in between. I would prefer seeing something more like the east elevation, which is a more traditional sized window, which represents the environment of that neighborhood. And the same with the west and the south elevation. Those windows just seem oversized based on what is traditionally seen in that neighborhood. And the recessed panel on the west elevation, can you explain what that's all about? There's no window or, see on the west elevation?
Yeah,
Yeah, I see
that's
that.
just a panel.
Just a recessed panel,
Yes, sir.
and it has no purpose?
Other than to match the verticality of
Got
the other window.
That just seems a
But,
little,
it happens to be placed on a stair, so the
Yeah.
panel, the stair would interrupt the panel.
yeah,
There-
it just seems a
I
little
mean, I
little awkward.
could make it another window, but there wasn't a need to do it. If you'd feel more comfortable with it just be the siding, I have no problem.
And is that the reason on the north elevation, the window on the west side is kind of the center of the wall? Is that also the staircase?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that the landing of the stair is below that
Right.
window.
Well, I prefer seeing a window in this centered like that as opposed to,
What?
well, the window here is
Yeah.
centered in the space
Yeah,
as opposed to the west elevation when it just seems a little awkward to have a window above and a paneled space below. But that's my general comments for now.
Jane?
Yeah, I would agree that the windows on the south elevation do look floor to ceiling.
And these are narrow lots and
Yeah.
small homes,
Yeah, it's just the,
except for what the developers have
Yeah,
destroyed.
but the proportion of the glazing on that elevation is certainly, within the guidelines.
I think this is a question that the scale looks too big. The scale of the windows in the back and the potential for
Well,
light pollution is probably what they're talking about.
I think what you're responding to is the fact that we have a lowered eave line, and so it's not, it's only, it's not a full story that's with. That.
Well, let's finish the comments and we'll
okay,
address them then.
my very first comment would be, I know this is a narrow lot, do you need 4 parking spots in the front of the house? Cause that seems excessive.
Well, there'll be, for the way the code is written, you have to have one less parking place for the number of bedrooms that will
And
be
this is
in the
gonna be a
house.
5-bedroom?
That's correct. This is not, the parking at this house is almost no different than its neighbors.
Well, here, I do have a question for Counselor. Did we pass did the stacking law change in parking in Village Code? Because right now, these are 4 stacked cars that would not pass Village Code.
Not that I'm aware, but I can check.
The code is that you should not have to move more than 1 car.
Well,
We
we've
don't
made
allow,
suggestions
no,
to
we
change
don't
that.
allow they don't allow stacked cars in the driveway. That's what this is, but that's been under discussion, so I don't know where it is.
Oh, right. Yes.
My understanding in the 30 years that I've been here is that, as long as you only need to move 1 car,
Well,
you can park a car. And the
well,
reason for that
we'll
is
check that, because I'm pretty
So if
sure there's been
someone
a
has
whole
a-
thing about stacked cars in the driveway,
So if
but,
someone has a single width driveway, they can only park 1 car in it.
right?
Is that?
I hear you,
code?
but this is more the purview of the building department, but I believe the current code does not allow for stacked cars. And right now, only 1 car can be moved, but they don't allow for multiple stacked cars in driveways.
When
But
was that
just
changed?
well, you know what, ask that of the building department, because that's
How
not
long-
under,
How long has that been?
you're not hearing me. That's not actually under our purview, but I'm not sure this passes code, so I'm gonna ask you to ask the building department.
Okay.
Okay.
Usually it doesn't make it to this board if it doesn't pass the.
We should be surprised.
All right, so my comments are,
But, if you need to, I provided you with
well,
pictures of the.
well, why don't we start with my,
Now,
why
this
don't
house-
we start with my comments first?
This
um,
is the house.
Yeah,
next
we
door.
we drove by, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There are, numerous homes in this neighborhood the lots are small.
I understand. But most of the small lots would have been built in probably the 50s, 60s?
And that street,
No,
yes.
No,
40s, 50s.
Oh, the original houses that are on there probably were.
this
But
house has a mixture of times when homes were built.
did they recently renovate the porch of this house?
No.
The house looked very recently renovated.
I thought they'd
The
recently put a
landscaping,
pergola
everything
across the
was
front of it. Right.
Well,
Anyway,
they-
We're digressing. Let me go back to this
they
house for a
window
second.
dressed it,
Yeah.
I'm sure to sell
Yeah,
it.
I think that's what happened, because I remember work being done on it.
Yeah.
Okay, here are my comments. The glass front doors, to me, are disharmonious with that neighborhood. We don't like glass front doors. First of all that light goes straight to the street, and you've said it's a straight lot. And also, I don't find that it's easy to actually understand what's the front door. So I think you may want to rethink the 3 glass front doors, and they probably shouldn't be glass. And I echo the comments I'm hearing back for the amount of glass across the back. The window-to-wall ratio seems excessive across the back, especially to your point on small lots. Because in the turn-in windows that you have, when you look at the west elevation, those large windows that are facing, I guess they're facing east, shine straight toward the neighbor. So that's something else I'd like you to take a look at, because I don't think they're harmonious. I think the standing seam roof in this case as an accent piece is fine. The sort of striped nature of the house would not be my first preference for it, because I think I don't know, I think there may be a solution that might look a little bit more elegant, but that's your call. And I'm with John that I think this is too dark for the windows, because they're going to read black from the street.
This house is cedar shaped, presently, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, I think to be more consistent with the surrounding homes. A cedar shake makes more sense. Also, I wish the east elevation would match the west elevation from a style of window. But that's all I have for now.
Okay. So those would be our comments.
I can make the band between the stacked windows on the back to be more or less like we have here.
Okay.
That might
Okay.
satisfy you that.
Okay.
I can take this panel off.
From my personal perspective, it bothers other people more than it bothers me, just because I think it actually provides a balance to the window that's on the other side. But
That was the intent.
yeah, it's just the rear facing window to wall is just too
are
big.
in this gray
Yeah.
shade, so that what you
Yeah.
see there is that
Yeah.
that color.
Yeah.
So it was meant to sort of give a little symmetry to
Yeah.
that.
No, I understand that. That's not a deal killer for me. The but you've heard the comments. We'll see if there's any comments. Are there any comments from the public? Anybody back there? All right. What
I'm curious about something.
Please.
I've heard you mention about glazed entries. The reason that you see it as frequently as you do is that this is the direction that domestic architecture has taken. And,
It's not something that we've approved.
well, I know it hasn't, but I'm suggesting to you that this is something that is responding to the tastes of the times.
And I'm suggesting to you that that's not something, you're going to need 3 votes at some point to get this house built, and I don't think you're going to find them, because this board has generally turned away from glass front doors, because when people drive down the street, there's a light pollution issue, and also when you live in that house, there's a privacy issue. That's up to the owners, but it's something that we have not found architecturally harmonious with the village. So you can tell me all you want to that that's where it may be going, but what I'm telling you is the history of what I've seen supported by this board and the history of choices that this board has found appropriate for architecture in the village. I don't think you'll find an all glass front door that this board has approved.
I think that the window to wall ratio on each of the elevations of this house are certainly within the guidelines that the village has.
Of course you do. Of course you do. You wouldn't have presented them. But I think what you're hearing from the board is that they feel some of them are excessive. And I think you're saying. Well, I think what you're hearing. I think what you're hearing is concerns about the backyard.
Large areas of glass, like windows sort of stacked up together and high and stacked above each other. Is that
I'm not here to debate architecture in
I'm
the
trying to
village.
get
What I'm
some
actually here
yeah.
telling you is I think you've heard from 3 different board members that there's an opinion that the amount of glass and the wall-to-window ratio on the rear elevations of this house that face the neighbors and the rear yard, you've heard notes from 3 people that they feel it's excessive, so it's probably something you'd want to address before you came back with revisions.
Or we can vote on it tonight. That's
So,
my preference.
would a home like this be
So
considered?
we're not going down this path.
Would
We are not discussing other houses. We're discussing the house that you have in front of us and what we think is. Yes, it's my house.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
What's your point?
What's your point?
Well, there's
And
a lot of glass.
what I'm going to tell you
This
is,
facing the
I'm sorry,
doors
but what
and
you're doing is incredibly inappropriate. So put that away. That's my house. That's not a public figure that's up for public debate tonight. Put that away. That is not your business, sir.
Well, I think that.
And as a matter of fact, I'm about to adjourn this until such time as you can come back and act professionally in front of this board, because I don't find that professional behavior. You don't bring my house and point out property of people on this board that way in this meeting. It's inappropriate. Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
I heard you.
Okay, so you've heard the feedback from the board. We have no public opinion. Would you like us to adjourn this?
I'd like to adjourn it till the next meeting.
Great. So I'm going to move that we accept the applicant's request for an adjournment for 222 White Street to October 23rd. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Never again. Okay, next up is 27 Adams Lane for a demolition evaluation of construction of a two-story single-family dwelling. Are they coming in by Zoom?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, give us 1 second.
Okay.
Where's the other,
We have the affidavits in there in order.
the other sample right there?
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, board members. Ryan Kessler, architect here for 27 Adams. Good to see you again. And I guess I'll just share my screen.
Please.
Can you see my screen, board members?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we're proposing to demolish a 1960s, 1970s ranch in here and put up a brand new house, twin gable. We are proposing a very simple twin gable design with an up and over roof, bringing the eaves down and repeating it on the back as well. We are also requesting to construct a two-car garage back here as well, which also mimics the architecture. So I'd like to keep it short and sweet because I know it's getting late, and I'd love your comments.
Is this another demo evaluation, or are they just demolishing the residence?
Let's go back. Can you tell us a little bit about the original structure?
The original house is either a 1960s or a 1970s ranch. I wouldn't really say it's in context with the surrounding homes by any stretch.
It's actually it's in context of what the original neighborhood was, but okay.
Original neighborhood, yeah. I mean, I guess it is, but yeah. I mean, that's really all I know about it, to be honest with you.
Okay, I don't have an evaluation form.
Okay. So I'm assuming that because it's a 1960s house?
It's either 1960s or 1970s.
Yeah.
I'm not totally certain. I'm getting different information.
But we need to know for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
okay,
sure.
so I think we'll have to consider that next time
Okay.
without knowing the exact age.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I doubt it's old enough.
Yeah.
It's probably not because it's a Roscoe farm, and most of the houses in the Roscoe farm that fell into this were like 65 to early 70s because it was the first Roscoe farm, and then the second, I believe, and then the second Roscoe farm was done later, but we still need to get that verified.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But let's go through it for
Okay.
comment.
I mean, it's possible the house could be 60 some odd years old and then.
Yeah, we need to know for sure.
Right,
We need to know.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll see what we could do with the COs, see if we could get a little bit more information for you on that good stuff.
So comments? Or?
Yeah, comments.
I can start on the front, the north elevation. I think it looks fine. The corbels are a little bit more than we typically like to see, but it's not a deal breaker for me. We would need to see the lighting plan. I assume it's recessed unless you're planning on putting surface mounted light fixtures in the front.
No, everything's under the underneath the roofs and stuff like that.
And that's noted in the detailed drawings, only because I'm seeing a lot of homes now with recessed lighting that surrounds the entire house. It's on all eaves, and it looks like an airport terminal. So I think we need to know
that's-
specifically where you're placing those recessed lights.
Yeah, no, that's not us. That's,
Okay.
we're strictly underneath here and under here. Just really where people are walking
Right.
out, that's
Okay.
important. Yeah.
All right. The east elevation, I think it looks fine. It's a bit under fenestrated. There might be an opportunity to add a little more detail from, windows. On the south rear elevation, the balcony is going to be an issue for this particular lot size, and I prefer seeing the other side mimicked for this side as well. And if there is a balcony proposal, we need to see sight lines and, into neighbors' yards. On the lower level, I think the window-to-wall ratio is a bit out of whack. I could do without the transom windows on the sliders or whatever French doors are located there. And perhaps maybe changing the middle section to 3 instead of 4 might make all the difference. And that's generally all I have right now.
Jane?
Yeah, I would agree with John that the window to wall on the rear south elevation is a bit high. Are those all doors? Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Is that 10 doors?
Well, this would be one slider. These would be 2 fixed panels. These would be 2 fixed panels, and these would be
2 center
sliders.
sliders.
Yeah, and they don't all open. They're not like folding doors or anything of that nature. It's either there's just going to be 1 swinging or 2 swinging or 1 sliding, 2 sliding.
Well, are they sliding or swinging? Just kind of curious.
I believe I have these all as, let's go back to the videotape, as sliding now.
They're sliders. Okay.
Also,
You've got the 2 on the side with the center sliding panel, and then you've got a double sliding panel on the 4-ganger in the center.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would definitely say to consider the balcony. You've been here before. So those are 2 open doors right now, or 1 slider up there for the balcony?
Yeah, it'd be 1 slider up there.
Yeah, we drove by the house today. We were trying to figure out what was in back of it. It was kind of hard to see, but looks like that may be an imposition on the neighbors.
Okay.
All right, I have 3 comments, actually. Are those solid panels next to the front door, then with there's a transom over the whole thing?
Yes.
That's sort of an unusual configuration for that neighborhood, I think. Side lights might be a better answer there. Just, it'd be more in keeping the architecture. And then the 2 gang of windows that you have on the 2nd floor over the porch, on the front porch on the north elevation. They seem, if those could be 2 defined windows or maybe 3, the rhythm of those 2 great big windows looks contemporary to me in comparison to the rest of the house.
Yeah, my thinking was I was trying to mimic the mulling of these other ones here.
Yeah, I just think I think there may be another answer to those 2 windows that's probably a little more harmonious to this neighborhood.
Okay.
In the backyard, I share the comments you've heard about the transoms and about the balcony. One thing that may help you is you may want to do a sightline analysis from the balcony to the neighbors, to the, I guess it is to the north,
Okay.
because we need to understand that. And then I just have one other question. When you, right now this house is what color?
Right now we're going to make it white
Okay.
with black windows.
With what?
With what?
Black windows.
No, okay, so the black windows would be a non-starter. The White House with black windows would just be a non-starter. I
Okay.
think you'll look through, we just haven't approved White House with the black windows a very long time. And then that answers my question then. I think you'd have to come back to us with another option there.
Okay.
And just the only thing I would say about the corbel detail in the, on the north elevation, it sort of matches the house next door and makes the 2 houses look awfully similar. So just to make this house might look a little more unique to a neighborhood, you might want to take a look at what its relationship would be to the house next door.
Okay. We'll consider it.
Okay. So those would be my comments. Do we have any questions from the public? Comments from the public? Getting a big no. All righty, my friend, so I hear you asking for an adjournment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so motion to accept the client's request for an adjournment to October 23rd for 27 Adams Lane. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, get home safe, guys.
Okay, thank you. Stay dry, if possible. Apparently, we have
You too.
24 more hours of this.
Oh, jeez.
All right, so that one's been adjourned.
Last but not least.
So we should take jurisdiction of 98 Pheasant Close?
Oh.
Because we have affidavits and they're in order, and then we can
Okay.
vote on that adjournment request.
Okay, so I'm going to call 98 Pheasant Close East.
We have affidavits and they're in order, and there is an adjournment request at 10:23.
Okay, so motion to accept the client request for an adjournment for 98 Pheasant Close to October 23rd. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, next up we go to driveway gates, non-historic, 118 Harvest Lane. Great. Hello?
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you guys again?
Thank you. Again, thank you for hanging in. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Karen Miles, 118 Harvest Lane, and my husband, my technology whiz, is right down here too. Because I have issues, as you guys know, in the past.
I don't know.
So-
Thanks for having your technology up and ready to go.
See that? We're getting better. Round 7, we're really good at it now.
Little practice, right?
So the only change you guys requested last time was, and you guys have the current renderings and the material from the last meeting, to flip the slats in the gate. They were originally 3 inches and the space was 2.5. So we switched it. The slats pickets are now 2.5 inches and the space is 3 inches. So I agree with you guys. I think it looks better. And it's like 48% open, the draftsman said.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
Okay. And run us through one more time. What's the mechanism for this gate?
it's sliding it. We have arborvitae in the front of the house.
Okay.
So these gates will open and slide behind the arborvitae, so you won't see when they're open. They'll be just behind it.
And are they automated? Is there
Yes.
Is there a gooseneck, or is it from the car, or what's the automation?
It'll be from the car, so it's just, it'll look exactly like, very clean, just exactly like you see in the drawings. Nothing, no posts, no elaborate, no lighting, nothing, just simple.
And are you asking for approval of the deer statue as well?
Well, yes, we thought that really finished it. We're gonna put one on either side since it's a circular draw. But that would be really nice and maybe decorated during the holidays.
We do have a couple of deer souvenirs that are in the front yard.
Board members?
I think it's fine.
Oh.
I think it's fine.
I think you did exactly what we asked you to do, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Any questions, any comments from the public? Okay. Motion to accept the application, the gate application for 118 Harvest Lane as per the drawings of September 18. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There you go.
Thanks, guys.
You'll miss us.
I'm gonna come anyway, just to say hello. You know.
You know, we're always here.
Thank you, guys. We live in the village for a reason and appreciate the work you guys put into preserving the history, the culture, and everything that goes into it. So thank you.
You
Great.
know how
Thank
nice
you.
that is to
Thank you.
hear.
Appreciate it.
I know,
Okay.
and people don't appreciate what you guys do, and after we've been through this process, I said to my husband after the first meeting, I fully understand it. So we really appreciate you guys. And
Great,
that's
thank
why
you.
the town looks as well as it does. I agree 100%. You guys are the best. Thank you so
Great.
much for approving it, and stay dry. Only
Stay
a few
dry,
more
but
days.
apparently we have another day.
I know, right?
Hey, it's
All
good
right,
for the
thank you,
grass.
guys.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a
All
good
right,
night.
so we have already adjourned 50 Hildreth Street, and 127 is adjourned to a later date to be advertised. So, motion to adjourn this meeting of the Architecture Review Board. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we're out.